possibly the largest corruption and securities fraud in U.S. history. Unresolved, it could blow up into a financial crisis bigger than FTX, bigger than Madoff, bigger than the 2008 Great Recession. What started as a preferred dividend owned by 65,000 investors with only 165.5 million shares offered soon became an investment held hostage where tens of thousands of shareholders could lose tens of billions of dollars. That's billions with a B. The ransom has the potential to bankrupt not only the short hedge funds involved, but also expose massive fraud at the core of the entire U.S. stock market, an event that will rock the financial world now and for decades to come. Stock symbol MMTLP. This little-known preferred dividend is the tip of the spear that can pierce the corruption of counterfeit shares poisoning the U.S. stock market. Retail investors and the businesses they invest in have been stolen from, victims of the Wall Street Mafia. And it seems, as far as FINRA and the Securities and Exchange Commission, that's business as usual. Until now.
And we're stuck in this limbo with this trade, with this ordeal.
U3 halt. 68 days later, I'm still sitting here waiting, trying to pour my cement slab to put my house up.
When this all happened in December, it was the anniversary of my husband's passing. It was a really hard time. My kids all understood what was happening with MMTLP, and they were all, it was hard for them to understand. It was hard for me to admit to my kids the depth of the dishonesty and lying and cheating and stealing that goes on in our country.
MMTLP was initially a placeholder for oil and gas reserves in the Oro Grande Basin of West Texas. It traded quietly for a year until November 2022, when documents were filed with the SEC to spin out MMTLP shares into a privately held oil and gas company named Bridge Hydrocarbons. It was a one-for-one share trade, not complicated. 1 for 1.
Now, this new thing, MMTLP, we all looked at it like, So, 3.2 billion barrels of oil, 6.3 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Everybody in this play did their due diligence. We did our homework. Take a mental note of that.
Went through the 18 months of just stringing me and my family and everybody along with holding off on things that we might have wanted to do, vacations we wanted to take, because I didn't want to pull any of the money out of what I had in MMTLP. I had liquidated other positions. I took every spare dime we had and I put it towards MMTLP.
An MMTLP share for a Bridge share, as simple as trading marbles or baseball cards on the playground with a buddy. This wasn't a hard concept to understand. Or was it? The spin-out date to Bridge was set for close of market on the final day of trading, December 12th, the date of record. December 14th would be the distribution date. 1 for 1. Then, boom! Houston, we have a problem. As the 12th approached, it became apparent that there were millions more shares of MMTLP than the 165.5 million initially issued. Speculation is that there are 1 billion counterfeit shares in MMTLP, with almost 10 million shares alone shorted on what turned out to be the last day of trading on December 8th. Imagine this. It's as though a used car dealer sold 10 people the same car for cash only on a Saturday afternoon, telling each buyer they have a valid title, and he will deliver the car to them the next day, all cleaned up and ready to roll. But no one has the real title. They all have phony photocopies, and no one gets the car. Now you have the essence of the MMTLP story. Since it is illegal to create counterfeit short shares, just as it is illegal to counterfeit Benjamins, And since it is illegal to transfer short shares, counterfeit or otherwise, into a privately held company, it was anticipated that the final 2 days of trading of MMTLP would become a major short squeeze, a MOAS, a mother of all short squeezes. In that short squeeze, short shareholders would have been required to close only their shorts, and long holders of MMTLP would only be able to sell their shares. There would be no trading, only closing of positions, long or short. In that scenario, that MOAS scenario, long holders of MMTLP would have been able to ask massive sums of money for each of their shares, and shorts would have been forced to pay it. Speculation was that shares could be forced to pay between $100 and $1,000 or more per share. On the last day of trading, December 8th, the closing price was $2.90, so the prices on the 9th and 12th would have soared. But then all hell broke loose. Early morning on December 9th, when FINRA, the regulatory agency overseeing the OTC market, placed a U3 halt on trading of MMTLP for the final 2 days, December 9th and the 12th. Note that it's the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, and the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, that oversee financial markets, meant to ensure that they are fair and orderly and to protect investors. At least that's their stated responsibility. FINRA claimed that the halt was put in place because an extraordinary event has occurred, but to date has never explained what that extraordinary event is. In addition, this was one of only 3 U3 halts on the OTC market in U.S. history. This action by FINRA froze the investors in MMTLP from selling their shares, with no explanation, nada, zip, crickets. And the U3 halt also protected the corrupt short hedge funds from being forced to close their short positions at sky-high prices. The MOAS was killed in its tracks.
So now my wife's retirement fund, my mom and my uncle's retirement funds all zero. Every penny that I made extra and put into it, all zero. Never thought in a million years that Congress and regulators and all that invest in the free markets, something like this would ever happen.
This whole thing is not fair, and it's really disappointing. It's disappointing because I feel whether we have one share or we have millions, all of us who are suffering from this are in the same boat, and that boat's sinking. And I don't want to be thrown to the wolves in all of it. I want a lifeline sent to that boat we're in.
For 3 months and counting, MMTLP investors have tried in vain to get help from FINRA, from the FCC, from Congress, and from their brokers who sold them their shares of MMTLP. Not one of these organizations designed to protect the retail investor would give them a straight answer, or basically any answer at all. The investors have been locked in a living hell since December 8, 2022. At the very least, they were supposed to be able to transfer their MMTLP shares into the AST, the American Stock Transfer Company, but their brokers have either refused to transfer their shares or made it expensive or slow-walked the transfer. For MMTLP shareholders, the situation is completely FUBAR. What if FINRA and the SEC refuse to make the MMTLP shareholders whole? If there are indeed up to 1 billion counterfeit shares of MMTLP, then the regulators cannot allow the shareholders to be made whole, because then it would prove the existence of counterfeit shares. Hundreds of millions of illegal counterfeit shares. This is how you get the collapse of the entire market, the exposure of counterfeit shares in MMTLP, revealing fraud, corruption, and deception rampant on a global scale. FINRA and the SEC caused the problem. They can be the solution. They can force an open market for the 2 final days of liquidation of MMTLP shares, force the market makers and short hedge funds to purchase their shorts and counterfeit shares from MMTLP investors. If FINRA and the SEC continue to block any such closing of short shares, the impact of this criminality will send shock waves through the U.S. and global retail investment community. Fact, if they can do this to MMTLP, they can do this to any stock on the market. Retail investors, pension fund investors, 401k investors need to band together with MMTLP investors to force change. Let it trade. Let those who created the corruption pony up and buy their way out of the impending financial crisis. Allow the last 2 days of trading in MMTLP close only for shorts, sell only for shareholders. The stakes couldn't be higher.
And guess what, folks? We're fighting for you. We're fighting for the retail investor, no matter what stock you have, because the corruption has to stop. The naked shorts have to stop. Me, I love everybody, and I want this to be fixed for my country's sake.
And I just hope something happens. Just don't know. I just don't have much faith anymore that we're going to keep being loud. There's a lot of people who are doing a lot of good work, and we're going to continue, and we're not going to stop, because what happened to us, it's just not okay.
I believe we will get resolution to this plague, and I believe with the same group we'll be able to go help other tickers, other communities, make a difference.
Expose the criminals. Expose the crime. Help your country, because when all this shakes out and hopefully new laws and regulations come down the pike, guess what? It's gonna be like a nightmare for them criminals, and they're gonna be handing out orange jumpsuits.
To protect the U.S. stock market and financial system, nothing less than a retail investor revolution is called for. The ball is in the hands of FINRA, the SEC, the DTCC, Congress, and the Department of Justice. Let MMTLP trade. Give investors back their 2 days of trading you stole. Force institutions to close all short positions, counterfeit or otherwise. Let it trade. We demand a fair market.